Troops, Reilly's Gaff is sponsored by El Dorado tonic wine. I love this stuff. Big James loves this stuff. And you're going to love it as well. Go get yourself a bottle at convenience stores all over Scotland, or you can get it online on Amazon as well. Go get yourself a wee bottle, crack it open, and enjoy the podcast.
Day-to-day the shit change, but you know for the most part nothing ain't different. Sometimes be stuck in my ways, weekend fucked up in somebody's kitchen, sticking my hand, I'm chilling with the troops and my few cans down, so I walk like Winston. Trust me, I wake up hanging, you think that I'm leaving this bed, you're kidding, I'm sitting on back in the pad, get deep fried and I smoke some packs of the grass, put the feet up, kick back and relaxing at best, no I'm sitting on Reilly's.
Troops, welcome back to Reilly's Gaff. Now we've got I would say a very special episode coming up. Don't want to put pressure on you, but we've been planning this for a while. Yeah. We've Claire in. Now, Claire, you are an Egyptologist, is that right?
I am, yes. Yeah.
And I was telling people, we've got an Egyptologist coming on the podcast, and a few people were like, that's amazing. And then a few people were like, what's that? So could you explain to us exactly what an Egyptologist is first?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of an umbrella term. Just there's loads of folk out there who say, yeah, Egyptology, but, some of them do archaeology, some of them do language, some people do museum collections, that kind of thing. So, but Egyptology is basically the study of ancient Egypt and all its forms from the pre-dynastic period through pharaonic, so all the great kings and everything, pyramids, all that stuff, right through to post-pharaonic Egypt and down to modern day reception of ancient Egypt. So really you can be doing anything in there. So so yeah, there's some folk who are Egyptologists who do something completely different. So
it's a long old time, innit?
It is, yeah. That's why there's so many people doing so many different things. But I think that's part of the charm of it. There's something for everybody: art, history, archaeology, whatever. So, but my thing's more the kind of archaeology and the reception of ancient Egypt. So, yeah.
Is that sort of what you've always been into in terms of ancient Egypt? Because I was wondering, it's something that maybe we've got like a certain sort of spin-off show of this podcast called Deep Fried, and it's when we'll look into ancient civilizations and we are just fascinated by it, but you've actually pursued it professionally. Yeah. So like I was wondering, what was how early back in your life did you become fascinated by Egypt? What's the earliest you can remember?
I was a nerdy child, you could probably get. About 5 or 6 or something, that's when I first, sort of became aware of ancient Egypt. I remember I saw a picture of the Mask of Tutankhamun. I know it's a bit cliche, but yeah, I just saw it and I was like, and it just that image just stuck in my head for all the rest of primary school. Just drew pictures of it and everything, and it was decided, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to go do that. And I took a wee bit of a kind of roundabout sort of route. I went to Glasgow Uni to do archaeology and Celtic civilisation. So, because I was thinking, there's no many jobs in Egyptology, I need to kind of get a backup plan in order. So, but then I was working in museums, volunteering and things, did my master's museum gallery studies, but all the while just kind of teaching ancient Egypt and things. So I've kind of not exactly fallen into it, but it's been a kind of a lifelong pursuit, and I've managed to kind of inveigle my way in sideways, So a lot of people go maybe go to uni and they do an undergrad Egyptology, then master's PhD. So I've kind of wiggled in a different direction, but yeah, finishing my PhD in about 18 months. So yeah, and I've still got my museum work and things like that and teaching and stuff. So
nice one. Is there some see how you were saying that you were doing like kind of Celtic civilizations? Is there some like transferable?
Yeah,
knowledge?
Absolutely. All of these kind of, archaeology, Celtic civilization, the focus is on, transferable skills as well. It's humanities research and things, ancient world, just different, ancient networks and things, and, just looking at how ancient cultures contacted each other and everything. So, and then obviously there's the whole kind of connection of Scotland with ancient Egypt, Princess Scot and all that legend as well. So, So that's a wee bit more tenuous, but yeah, it's
Tell us about that.
Oh, right. Well, well, according to legend, a daughter of the Egyptian king came over to Scotland way back in the day, and, you know, conveniently her name was Scota. And settled here, and she is the origin of the Scottish people. You know, there's a kind of, you know, connection with Ireland as well. You know, they've got the similar kind of version of it. It shows up in early medieval Scottish and Irish manuscripts. But it's kind of one of these, I suppose, kind of origin myth things. You know, the Scottish kings had, as you may know, sort of king lists, and it's sort of ways of tying themselves back to the ancient past and things like that. So yeah, the kind of the jury's out whether there really was a Scota. You know, there's two camps. There's sort of, no, it's just a legend. There's people who are kind of like, yeah, there could be something in it. But yeah, that's their sort of, you know, it's very entrenched, that, you know, connection with Scotland with Egypt. So
that's so funny. Do you know how you mentioned, like, we mentioned the deep fried episodes?
Yeah.
I actually said to you the other day, I've got a deep fried I want to do, and I've not told you what it was, and I wasn't going to, but it's actually in the book Scoticron, is it called?
Yeah, the Scoticron. Yeah,
Scotichronicon. Is that where that came from?
Mm-hmm.
Aye, that's mad.
Crazy,
Aye,
isn't it?
so that was like, that was I kind of, because I've not actually looked into it. I think I just kind of seen bits about it, and I was like, that would be brilliant to research.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a guy was tasked with like writing the ancient history of Scotland.
Yeah, Walter Bauer and John Fordun and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's manuscript with a lovely wee sort of wee vignette, wee painting of, you know, just sort of early medieval art style, which, you know, is always fun. You know, just sort of boats sailing across, you know, with you know, tiny boat with 4 people in it. And yeah, this is what happened. You know, so yeah, there's a kind of sort of Greek prince in there as well. So it's a kind of, yeah, there's, but it happened a lot, you know, ancient Near East did that too, you know, just that kind of king list, you know, it's sort of tying back to an ancient tradition, making sure it's sort of like, you know, we're legitimate,
we're viable,
we are strong, we've been there since the beginning, that kind of thing. And yeah, just and connected to these ancient kind of powerful, intelligent, you know, just sort of, you know, kind of almost legendary mythical cultures themselves. So
aye. I can understand that.
Aye.
Yeah.
See, when we talk about ancient Egypt, obviously it spanned over a long amount of time. But just to give people an idea, obviously there's other famous ancient civilizations, Rome and the Greeks and stuff. Where in the timeline does ancient Egypt fall between them?
Well, when we're talking about ancient Egypt, it's usually pharaonic period, so we're kind of usually about 3000 BC, you know, down to, you know, kind of 0 pretty much, you know, sort of, you know, Greco-Roman period, you know, that's when they kind of moved in and ancient Egypt kind of, you know, as we would call it, you know, sort of declined really. So, but that wasn't the end of ancient Egypt, of course, you know, so Greek and Roman rulers of Egypt, etc. So yeah, we're talking about a kind of 3 millennium period, you know, 3000 down to about, you know, first century.
And
really.
I think you touched on it right at the start, but I just want to get it again, obviously, because they span over a large period of time. How do you break that up into certain periods? So
yeah it's a very unwieldy time span. So this is our kind of modern day splitting up of the time periods. The ancient Egyptians wouldn't recognise that. You know, they went by regnal dating, you know, which is by kings and things. So it's like year 1 of Ramesses, and then when he popped his clogs, you know, it would be, you know, year 1 of the next one, that kind of thing. So this is why we've got, you know, had so much, you know, kind of sort of chronology issues with trying to piece together when this all happened. So this is one of the reasons we don't really, you know, kind of go for much for, you know, specific dates as such. We go for these sort of like Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom. So in Egyptian history, for the most part, Egypt had a sort of strong central rule where there was one king ruling Upper and Lower Egypt. It was sort of the 2 lands. So we kind of start with, you know, the sort of pre-dynastic, early dynastic. That's kind of ancient Egypt as we know it, you know, the sort of, you know, the first time we've really got a kind of unified, you know, single entity, which leads into the Pyramid Age, which as we call the Old Kingdom. So it's a kind of line of, you know, successive kings with, you know, that kind of, you know, central rule. And then at various points, there's a kind of, where it kind of breaks down a wee bit, so we've got what we call the intermediate periods, so sort of traditionally called chaotic periods, where it just really means, just other people were kind of, getting more powerful. There wasn't a central rule, etc. So we go from, the Old Kingdom, it's a bit of a blip, Middle Kingdom, bit of a blip again, New Kingdom, etc., etc. So, and then within that, we've got these kind of split it into dynasties and things. So, for kind of ease of use, really, we kind of go sort of like Tutankhamun was New Kingdom, 18th dynasty kind of thing. So, so it's more about the kind of flow of time rather than getting specific dates and things in place, because it can be quite challenging.
I imagine that would be quite difficult. It was a wee while ago, wasn't it?
It was a wee while ago, yeah.
So just taking it back to like the beginning of what we understand their civilization to be, what would life have looked like for those like early settlers in Egypt?
Well, there would be sort of desert nomadic groups of people, up and down the Nile Valley, further south as well into Sudan, probably over into sort of what is now modern day Lebanon, Syria, etc. So, so people would have moved into the Nile Valley because it's it's nice and it's nice there. That's where the big river is. That's where the fertile land is and everything. Lots of desert roundabout. So, so it's a kind of geographical or climatic accident kind of thing, in a sense that sort of everybody kind of moves in, there. So, so there's a lot of mobility, but then once people get in near the river, it's easier to settle and farm and keep animals and things like that. So that's where we get our first kind of sort of like settled places, and then they just get bigger, and then the leaders of these people, obviously they're wanting to, sort of, make their mark and everything, and that's where we kind of start to see the dawns of ancient Egypt as we know it.
Aye.
So see from there, when do we get our first pharaoh?
Well, the Narmer palette is the sort of first really iconic artefact from ancient Egypt. It's about a metre tall. It's a makeup palette. It's a sort of ceremonial fancy makeup palette. But it's got a kind of but the decoration on it is the earliest evidence of yeah, that's it there. Yeah, it's really nice.
So that's the first
artefact? That's the first, the first definite artefact that we see ancient Egyptian king on it, that, that kind of image that persists, because even if you go down to the, Greeks and Romans, the kings are still looking like that. So so for a while after it was found, late in the 19th century, the two sides of it, because it looked like, the sort of, you see the king on the one side, he's got the white crown, on the other side he's got the red crown. So it's been kind of thought that it's a sort of showing the unification of Egypt. But we know now, because we know more about pre-dynastic period, that it wasn't really one event, it wasn't like a single battle or something. It's been more gradual, but King Narmer has kind of come up trumps on that sort of thing. So, but this is the sort of one of the iconic objects of ancient Egypt. So he's our first, pharaoh, as we would
recognised. It just blows my mind, because if you said to me, you've got 2 years, make that. You're like, no.
I think that's one of the sort of amazing things about Egypt generally. I find it's just, just everything is just, just there's so much effort put into everything.
Yeah.
The first time I visited Egypt, it's sort of, I don't know, maybe it sounds a bit daft, because obviously I know there's writing and things everywhere, but, just when you just realise how much, there's sculpture, there's painting, there's writing, literally everywhere.
Detailed.
It's fantastic, and it all started, at this place called Hierakonpolis, which was, what we would call maybe the earliest kind of, power centre, capital, if you like. So that's him. That's the guy.
Very interesting. What do we understand? Because obviously modern day, you have royal families, and it's all based on like family lineage, and then you'll have elected people that are in charge of a place. What do we understand about how someone would become pharaoh? Would it be agreed upon between the people?
No, it wasn't very democratic. So, it was very much a kind of top-down society. So, the king was absolute. Within that, there's sort of, obviously there's, schemy officials like everybody else who want a particular person on the throne kind of thing. But generally there would be like I suppose what we could call a crown prince or somebody, kind of waiting in line. And sometimes there would be what we might call a co-regency, where there's sort of like a joint rule, just to kind of help ease that transition. But there was no voting system or anything like that. In ancient Egypt, the king was a divine being, so he was a god on earth. So, excuse me. So nobody's going to challenge that. So.
And how do you get how did the king even have the opportunity to be absolute and to be divine in that? Did that just come from family? It's kind of similar to
Yeah, it's one of these sort of, it ties in with, Egyptian mythology, kingship mythology and all of these kind of ideas. They're really ancient, they come from probably millennia before we have ancient Egypt. We've got things called the pyramid texts, which show up in the Old Kingdom. Sort of spells or utterances, which are inscribed on the inside of some of the pyramids. And they talk about, the king's journey back to the stars and everything. So these ideas haven't come from nowhere. They're on that pyramid, fully formed, and there's some, sort of symbolism and, sort of, just even words in there that we've no idea what this means. It's so old, so it's absolutely amazing. Sort of like from day one, the king is, he's a divine being. He is on earth, and that's just how it is.
He came for the stars.
Yeah.
Is that what they thought?
Yeah, the sort of one of the main creation myths is that in the beginning there was nothing but the sort of waters of creation. And then the first land emerged, and after that there was a falcon who was associated with the king, sort of far-sighted, quick to strike, all that kind of thing, so that stays one of the images or symbols of the king, for all time as well. So it came and landed on the earth, at that point, and that was the sort of the beginnings of Egypt. So it's tied right into mythology. So from day one, the king and religion, etc., they've come from the gods, basically. And then on the king's death, particularly in the Old Kingdom, we've got the pyramids, the big pyramids. The king will go back to the stars, so you can go around the pyramid and read the text. Actually, it's like a journey in the inscriptions, in the west of the pyramid, there's particular, types of texts and everything, and it kind of guides the king, sort of through, metaphorically and physically back to the stars, so, and even later, when kings aren't being buried in pyramids anymore, you get more of a kind of underworld sort of journey, if you like. It's still going back to, Osiris and, those kind of mythological figures that are just right there at the very beginning.
They're etched into the Egyptian myth kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it. It's part of the Egyptian psyche, really. Just as part of their everyday life. Say just first pharaoh. That's what you've got. So everybody. Before and since sees, these kind of, images of the king as, just sort of all powerful, divine,
yeah.
All of these kind of things. So
I always wondered, see the pharaohs, would there ever have been any ones that didn't believe it, but they were like, I don't know, do you know what I mean? Was everyone bought in?
Yeah, that's a bit harder to tell because I suppose Egyptian art is quite, it's kind of almost formulaic in a sense, it's not the best word for it, but it's very recognisable. Everybody, if you look at it, you could see it's Egyptian, that kind of thing. So it's kind of hard to maybe get past that kind of facade that they're showing us, that everything's just sort of beautiful and perfect and this, sort of thing. But behind that, I mean, there are sort of obviously things like archaeology and, everyday texts and things, tell us about, alternative, interpretations or theories to the kind of standard thing. And by that, I'm not talking about the kind of new agey stuff or anything. I just mean, the kind of, maybe I suppose some kings who maybe kind of broke the mould a wee bit, so we've got Hatshepsut, one of the few female rulers in her own right. She ruled herself as king. And we've got Akhenaten, who that's him in all the kind of weird Egyptian art that you might see. He's got kind of he's got almost like a kind of female body, long face, that kind of thing. So that's. But the thing about Egyptian art is that it's conveying ideas. So it's not meant to be portraits and as such as we would recognise it. So where there's a change in artistic style, we're looking at possibly marking some kind of change in, maybe politics or ideology.
Culture.
And those two obviously go together as well. So yeah, there's kind of, there's wee anomalies in there. And they're obviously, some of the people that people get most excited about because it's different. We want to know what was going on here, what changed,
It is really interesting how over time, if the art changes, you're like, wait, what's went on there?
Yeah, there's a reason for it.
Yeah. Just your personal opinion, just in terms of all the pharaohs throughout history, what ones, maybe not a certain one, maybe a few, that you are most fascinated by? You've obviously got the most famous ones, Cleopatra, Tutankhamun, but how do you find just fascinating?
Well, I have to say Akhenaten. So yeah, that's another kind of just very cliche, I know, but it's just because it's so different, to what was going on. But because there's, the art styles change, but if you kind of look under the surface of that, a lot of what was going on in sort of palace life, text, artistic style and everything, it looks different, but if you kind of pick it apart, a lot of it is still sticking to the same sort of ideologies and things that we know of, but yeah, because there's all of that, and then there's Nefertiti in the mix as well, and people like, did she rule herself, and where is she? There's it's Tutankhamun's family, so naturally it's going to be just the kind of, it's going to get a lot of attention.
Glamorous.
But I think it's very glamorous. Yeah. So yeah, that's fascinating because just want to know exactly what was going on there. Yep, that's him.
Yeah, you can see the long face and
yeah. So you can see he's still a king. You still get the beard. Proportions are a wee bit odd.
Yeah.
But as I say, there's reasons for that. And Akhenaten's reign was marked by a kind of a change in religion. So rather than being, sort of principal god being Amun, the god of Thebes, all the other gods were demoted, and his god, the sun god, the Aten, was promoted to top god.
Top dog.
But this is partly why he looks like this. The sun god, the sun disk is, it's neither male nor female, and a lot of these statues, which are supposedly look like him, are actually the god incarnate in him. So
it's coming out that feminine kind of radiance.
Yeah, so
really
it's kind of,
it.
so he's encapsulating that. And so there's been lots of debate over the years about, right, why does he look like this? Was he have some kind of genetic illness or something? And that's kind of pretty much been discounted, because say just art is, it's about a message,
so it's symbolic rather than literal.
Yeah, this is not literally what he looked like.
It's dead advanced, because if you think about Renaissance art or whatever, or even just art for 1,000 years ago, it's like I paint that fruit in that bowl, but then they were trying to convey meaning in something that didn't. Do you know what I mean? They were trying to I don't know, just distort images to show a story or people to show their essence rather than just this is that guy. That's what I could do.
Like a literal photo or a portrait of him.
I heard there's a rumour going about, Claire, that a lot of the pharaohs were actually obese. Those fat guys.
Yeah, there's some of the mummies. I think that's what sometimes maybe escapes us as well when we're talking about, what people look like and everything, etc. We've got a lot of their bodies,
Aye.
so there's some mummies are, they were probably quite fat.
It would make total
so-
sense that they would be fat though,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're obviously going to get access to all the food that they want.
They don't have to work manual labour. Yeah, they're weighted on hand and foot. Yeah, good food.
Drinking honey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honey,
Loving
dates, beer, wine, all the good stuff.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Friday night.
I think even in modern day China, I think I used to get told when I was in Vietnam, Chinese people, they'll believe even just now that being obese is a sort of status symbol, because like what I said, it's like you've got access to all the food and that, whereas here you kind of frown upon it and be like, oh, that's unhealthy. It's just weird how different cultures perceive status symbol.
It's probably like mass producing food and that, but like back then it was like, right, we've got this food that we grew here, you know what I mean? Like the things that actually make you fat now are the cheapest things that you can get in
like
bulk
ultra
and that.
processed foods and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, quantity. But yeah, we've got we talk about art perfection things. We've got statues of different people, maybe scribes, people like that who are they're being shown actually with they've got kind of rolls of fat. So it's a sort of it's the wisdom of age, and especially in a period where not everybody got to live till like 100 or something. Old age was venerated. So yeah, it's a sort of you've lived long enough to excuse me, have all this kind of wisdom and knowledge and learning and things. So yeah, absolutely. And say there's some royal mummies who are quite plump. Still, even after being dehydrated and all the rest of it.
They
so
must have
it's
been
just
eating good, man.
So must have been a big girl at some point. Yeah.
What do we understand about? Because we've got a Patreon, which is like people pay money to like get more episodes off us and be able to ask guest questions. We've got a bunch of them. We'll maybe hit them at the end. But I kept seeing a lot about diet. What would the diet be like? What kind of foods would they have been eating?
Yeah, well, for your ordinary everyday person, your diet would basically be bread and beer, which again doesn't. Yeah, I know. Sounds like
brilliant.
a good time. Ancient Egyptian bread was, it's kind of more like a kind of flatbread type thing. And it would be just, we were talking about, mummies and the state of them and everything, just that's a lot of mummies, their teeth are ground down because of the amount of sand and things that's mixed in with your flour and things. So it sounds great, but yeah. But the beer, it's not like beer that we've got. It's almost kind of more like a food. It's really thick and just very potent. So, but that was your wages because they didn't have coinage in ancient Egypt. So workers were paid mainly in bread and beer. And you would have, things like, vegetables, cucumbers, dates, leeks, onions, various things like that. So your average person would be quite a basic diet. But
what kind of meat? Like, what would they be like hunting? Did they farm animals?
Yeah, I mean, you've got sort of you've got goats, donkeys, cows, etc. But just like plenty other times, these are expensive. So your average person doesn't get to have beef every day. So
it's a treat.
Just think duck, things like that. So duck, goose, yeah,
That sounds
stuff like
alright,
that. So still alright, But I mean, it's basic food, but did them fine.
I think when people think about ancient Egypt, we often just look at the pharaohs and wonder what their lives were like, but we kind of forget about the sort of everyday people there. I was wondering, what do we understand about the sort of jobs that people might have? Just sort of everyday people, what jobs they would have, and over time as the civilization grew, did that develop and improve for people, or was it always, because it was such a top-down society, did it always remain quite you're labouring and we're sitting down sort of thing? Yeah,
I mean, it's quite it's not the kind of society where it was easy to kind of move up the ranks sort of thing, so but your average everyday person, just sort of normal kind of family would be, the father would maybe work in the fields or something, the mother would be at home. kids would help out as well, just quite, I suppose, a kind of simple existence, but probably quite a hard one. If you were educated, girls didn't go to school, so so I would say that's an improvement. But boys generally followed their father's, career. So if your father was a scribe, then he would teach you his trade, or if he was like a metal worker or something. So. But a lot of men as well would be part of the the sort of temple rotation. So we think about maybe things like priests as being, just sort of, that's where they live. That's their job. There are some, people who have, that's their role as a priest, but, but a lot of people were actually kind of drafted in, a kind of rota system. You go and help out at the temple for a season, while the river's flooding, and you can't work in the fields anyway. And the same with the building things like the pyramids and whatnot. There's a drafting rota system there as well.
A lot of work.
So
I feel there's a lot of work going on.
Very organised. I think that's probably I would say the kind of, I suppose, one of the secrets to their success. Just from early on, they had the chance to settle next to quite a stable environment, so even though the Nile floods every year, it's quite predictable, so when your seasons are happening and everything. And obviously writing, which they're probably pipped by the Sumerians, I have to say. I think they got their writing developed first, but but that kind of fact of just being able to settle and gives you more time to develop things like art and sort of luxury goods and things like that. So that's, I think that's what gave them a kind of edge early on, and obviously the more of this kind of stuff that you produce, you have to have bureaucracy, you have to have administration. And as we saw in the Narmer palette, we've already got sort of very sort of powerful, efficient people already in place. So it's sort of just once it was there, they kind of ran with it really. So
is it true? I don't know how much you know about the Sumerians, but I was listening to something, and they were saying that the Sumerian civilization was maybe out of all the civilizations that have sort of came after it, quite similar to today, because it was not quite democratic. Things like I'm thinking particularly of the laws of Hammurabi. You might have come across that, which is Hammurabi was a king of Babylon in the 7th century, and he had a so-called law code drawn up. And it's not exactly a kind of right, these are the rules, these are the laws. It's more a kind of record of cases and what the judgment was for that. So if you stole your neighbour's sheep or something, then it was recorded, this is what happened. But yeah, it was very the verdict seemed to be quite in favour of the victim. It was a lot about reparation, so it was like punishing you for doing it. And taking things off you to sort of like make sure you're not just punished in the sort of judicial sense. Your life will be made harder because we'll give your house to your neighbour, that kind of thing. And so while the verdicts were they weren't exactly the same for every instance. So maybe it depended on how lenient the judges were that day or something. But it was it was a kind of, that's almost like a kind of eye for an eye sort of thing. Watched
the thing the other day about like the kind of legal system and how laws are drawn up, but it was mainly talking about America. But I think it goes back, so it was going back hundreds of years, and it was just talking about, it's all about like precedents. Like if it's happened before, then you usually it'll just go back, even if it's that. Sometimes you'll hear people saying like, 300 years ago, that then you'll talk about a case for then, and it's like, that's nothing to do with it. But it's like every law's built on the last time it happened, in a sense. I would say so. It's a sort of it kind of defaults back to what people know. I guess so. There's nothing really new. A
sort of theme throughout the whole Egyptian period is their obsession with astronomy. in mathematics.
Yeah.
And it is crazy how advanced they were in understanding all of that. Why do you think they had such a fascination with what was going on in the sky?
I think it goes back to, just those early Nile Valley dwellers. They were just hugely in tune with their environment, obviously. Nomadic groups, they would be, guided by the stars and everything. So it's something that it's not like they just looked up one day and went, oh, that looks interesting, sort of thing.
Is that Orion's belt?
But it's one of the ways in which they planned out their year as well. Just their sort of understanding of time and the seasons of the year and all these kind of things. It's how they managed to sort of organise themselves as well. So
it's genius that, isn't it? Because like now we've got like space time and that, and it's like it is all linked. You know what I mean? It is all like, I don't know, like it's so mad.
Aye. It's mind blowing to me that it's so long ago, and I feel like maybe if you don't look into this sort of stuff, you'd maybe believe that human beings we have got smarter in a sense of like we developed technology and we made things easier for ourselves, but the understanding of maths, obviously we'll go into the pyramids, the understanding to build that and the organisation. What do we consider about how did they get this knowledge? Where did this knowledge come from? Is that a really hard question? That's
a hard one. I suppose, it's something which comes up a lot, obviously, things like, the Great Pyramid, it's something like it's accurate to something like within 1 degree or something. And, and we've got a rough idea of how they were built, but, still it's taken quite a long time for, I suppose, to kind of get rid of that idea that, we can't do it. So how on earth did they do it? This is where these kind of alien theories and things come from. It's just how could, no, they must have had help from somewhere, but it's a kind of slightly there's a lot of, I suppose post-colonial discussion, around Egyptology in particular at the moment, just trying to get rid of these kind of, very wrong ideas, dating from 19th century and everything, which, kind of persisted for quite a long time that, just these are like, African people, just it's almost like kind of, it's quite racist really, just there's never the question about, how did the Greeks do that, it's just taken for granted because, they're white people, kind of thing. But pyramids, oh no, no,
somebody's gave them a hard
with that. They've definitely got that from somewhere. But
was there some Greek guys there?
Maybe they done it with a few Greek supervisors.
Foreman.
But I suppose the kind of, again, we're relying so much of their writing, to understand what they thought and everything. And then when we're going back to, let's say, pre-dynastic times, just working, we don't have as much of that. So it kind of seems as though things like the pyramids and whatnot just kind of almost sprung out of nowhere, just fully formed in a sense. But we can, take steps back. We can see the development of all of these kind of things, So short answer is I'm not entirely sure where that all came from, but they were clearly intelligent people, organised. It's not really in tune with their environment, etc. So it's not really without sort of.
I guess something you touched on is because their climate was so sort of predictable for them, it did give them time to master other things. They're not constantly fighting against their environment, and it maybe gave them time to go, no, I want to build a massive pyramid. Do you know what I mean? It kind of allowed them to express themselves through art and stuff. I do want to go into the pyramids. Something I wanted to ask you about is obviously they did put such an importance on the afterlife. It was a massive thing for them, and I've heard that some people believe that they kind of viewed this life as a sort of maybe like a warm up for what's just getting them prepared for that. And some people link sort of maybe the blue lotus flower that appears in a lot of art in Egypt. They maybe link that to being linked with Egyptians using maybe psychedelics to get into a sort of state of mind, or maybe a spiritual awakening, or maybe a portal into what's after this life. How much does sort of the mainstream scholars buy into that, or is that just a sort of fringe view?
I suppose it's kind of verging on fringy. But yeah, I would say you were saying the whole sort of obsessed with obsessed with just racing towards death, just life's just a trial run. I suppose the thing about ancient Egyptian afterlife is it's a continuation of this one, so it's not. I wouldn't call it a trial run exactly, but it was a sort of they love life and their beliefs they will go on to live in a different form, sort of transfigured for eternity, hopefully. So their preparations for this kind of thing are naturally, kind of focused towards this. But it's not to say that they took this life any less seriously, as it were. And we're kind of biased as well, I suppose, with the sort of just the preservation of the evidence, because most of our evidence does come from funerary contexts. Tombs and things, it does kind of seem as though just I was totally obsessed with death.
It's mad that it is, because there's a pure link between just like, because as you say, it's like it's all tombs and it's like places of rest. It's like it's dead linked with death in Egypt, isn't it? Like, but then you don't kind of think about just that. Every day, the concerts and all that. Like, what were they like? You know what I mean?
I was going to ask you about that. Is there obviously there's like we do think they had this obsession just because maybe that's what's left over. So it's kind of most of what we can see. So we're like, oh, this must have been their main thing, the afterlife. But is there is there aspects of like the Egyptians where you think most people don't know about that? You know what I mean? So maybe lesser known aspects of their life.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, just we're still kind of playing catch up a bit with, everyday life, as well as funerary stuff. Then obviously the rest of the main stuff we've got comes from the elite, it's royal or upper class context as well. Your average person, doesn't get a fancy tomb kind of thing, broadly speaking. So we're just trying to sort of, still play catch up with that a wee bit. But yeah, I suppose the just trying to get to grips with the kind of nuances of things like town and village life, So you've got your work during the day, but for the most part, just they live just like everybody else. They've got ways of entertaining themselves. They play games, they sing, they play instruments, all these kinds of things. So yeah.
Has there been many instruments found?
Not a lot, because it's the kind of thing. It's it doesn't survive well. Just because of what they tend to be made of. Have you ever seen Tutankhamun's trumpet?
Have not.
There's one for Google.
Get out immediately. I can just imagine Big Toot Man.
It's kind of
Don't like to toot and come in my own hut.
So this has been found then?
Yeah, this is obviously
this
was in his tomb. It's been played before. There's a clip somewhere where you can actually hear it. You can hear a note from it.
Oh, that's mad.
But obviously it's not the kind of thing that you're going to. People aren't just going to be sitting playing this all the time. So that was a kind of a bit of a one-off.
Yeah. Are we getting it? You getting it? I was actually going to ask, just because it just popped into my head there. Did you see the breaking news on February 19th of the new tomb that was found?
I actually just wrote a wee short article about
no
it,
way,
so
cool.
I'll forward you that later.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to reading that, definitely.
It just came out yesterday.
Was that a massive discovery then?
Yeah, it was. It's really super exciting, actually. It was the tomb was found a couple of years ago, and it was kind of suspected to be that of Moses II, but they've kind of, they've uncovered more from the tomb. They've managed to get into a bit more and, more or less confirmed that, yeah, it is. But it was one of the last missing royal tombs. There's not many still to find. So
that's amazing.
So even though we already have his body, he's in the He's in the new National Museum of Egyptian Civilisation, but it was never, his actual resting place was never known. So yeah, it's even though it's not intact as such, it's not a kind of Tutankhamun situation, but it is super exciting.
It's a
We've got the trumpet.
Excellent.
Oh, you might not be able to hear it without the headphone.
No, it's fine.
Oh, Star Wars?
Kinda.
It's a good trumpet, by the way.
It's a very
Can we
good
pause?
trumpet.
It's like obviously it's not what we would understand a trumpet to look like.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not a kind of jazz one.
You're not gonna
if only you could have seen what we turned the trumpet into.
You'd have loved it.
Yeah, I suppose it's more like a bugle kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But,
It's like a war. It kind of sounds like one of the old kind of war bugles, doesn't it?
So there's that, but there's stringed instruments as well. So
Yeah.
even if the strings don't survive, you've got the frames and things. So
Would you have
flutes and
bands?
things. I would imagine so. Sort of like a lot of stories and things from ancient Egypt. Just contrary to what you might think, most Egyptians couldn't read or write. Which is mad. It's something like so just because writing so much, we associate it so much with them. So a lot of stories would have been sung or performed or something. So
cool,
probably publicly as well. So yeah, there would be musical accompaniment.
There's a band up there, man.
Oh, they're there, right?
They're in King Tut's this weekend. But
King Tut's.
But yeah, these are kind of all of these kind of pictures again are from tomb situations. So that kind of makes it a wee bit, just it's not exactly that we can't say this is how bands worked or something, but again that's that kind of it's like a picture of this amazing afterlife that they're going to have, so there's symbolism in all of these things, even just down to who's sitting down, who's standing, the order of people in the image and all of these kinds of things, but they're just obviously there's a based on actual real
life situations,
kind of thing, so.
Of course.
Is there ever a worry, because obviously if you're working with such limited resources in terms of like, right, this is our evidence for this, is there ever a worry that maybe you'll find a bit of art and be like, that must mean that, and it could be completely wrong? Do you know?
Yeah, well, I suppose that's the I suppose going back to what we were talking about earlier about transferable skills in humanities and things, sort of good academic practice means revisiting things and adjusting your purview. So if something's come up and it doesn't fit the rest of it, then you have to go back and just go back a few steps and everything. Just can't dismiss it. Just that's just an anomaly or something. So I don't know if that answered the question. But
no, definitely, because if you've like decided, you've said, right, that thing's that thing, you do all this work on it, you publish 10 papers about it. It's been 3 years and somebody's like, oh, we found this thing that means this might not be.
That happens though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I doubt we're ever going to have the last word on these kind of things. But yeah, just a lot of my colleagues have revisited papers and republished, sort of, retract what I said earlier because we've now found this, but that's good academic practice.
Good research,
so that's a kind of something which at fringe archaeology is not just about the alien stuff and everything. It's about pseudo-archaeology. It's about the refusal to recognise the evidence. For what
that's
it
the
is.
stuff I'm into.
And I was going to ask you about that later, but I guess I'll ask you about it now because I want to move on to the pyramids. But does it annoy you as like someone who teaches this stuff and does it as a job when you hear guys like maybe Graham Hancock's talking and saying, oh yeah, I think they're all wrong actually, and maybe he kind of picks little bits of evidence and makes his own picture up? Does that annoy you?
I usually talk about it in class, so because I feel it's important to know what the other side are saying, but it's but we can't just sit on our own side, say, just, well, that's wrong. We have to look at the other side and say, try, just explain or try to understand why that does or does not fit what we believe, so So even though a lot of it, you know, sort of think, that's not what happened, but I do think there's value in talking about it, you know. So, but yeah, the sort of cherry picking evidence, you know, it's problematic. And then when it goes out as a popular programme and it's presented as fact, I think that's the main issue I have with these kind of things. But then if it gets people, you know, looking into it more and talking about it, you know, then that's good. But yeah, so it's always a part of my courses, you know, just play
a podcast with Graham Hancock and be like, here, stop it there.
Sort of, right.
I suppose though, like, as you're saying, there is a fine line between maybe a part of you is like, I sort of know that's not right and I sort of know what he's trying to do here, but then as you say, good academic work is based on maybe saying, maybe I'm not right and maybe we do need to revisit this. So I suppose there is a fine line between hearing these alternative views and maybe rubbishing them and then going, well, maybe there's something to it, but
yeah, I mean, they're supposed to an extent you have to, you know, I suppose, make a stance at some point, you know, because you can't, you know, just sort of just say, well, maybe we're right, maybe we're not, you know. We kind of it's that's not very good practice either, you know. Just just if that's your position, then as long as you can substantiate your own one, then it's up to the other side to prove theirs,
to hear, you know, the facts, sort of thing.
And I suppose a lot of, you know, the kind of that fine line comes down to I suppose, you know, that kind of perception that academia is kind of gatekeeping things, you know. So yeah, it's a kind of it's a fine line, you know, between sort of that's absolutely wrong and, you know, just playing into the sort of, you know, the stereotypical, you know, sort of just dismissing things because it sounds rubbish, you know. So
I think from like a psychological point of view, I can kind of understand why there might be like a little bit of ego involved in terms of like, if you're somebody that's devoted your whole life to this and then you go out and you're like, I found this and this is why, and I published these papers and your name's on it, and then somebody else comes in and says, actually, I don't think you're right there. I can see why that person would, in a sense, want to protect that work rather than maybe being completely open to be like, maybe that 30 years work I just done is completely wrong. So, but I suppose it just depends on the person and the evidence.
I mean, it's hard to just sort of just I suppose that's part of, you know, your kind of, I suppose, kind of academic journey as well, you know, just sort of learning to you know, where you know, sort of psychologically fit in, and, you know, learning to protect your work while not taking it personally.
Exactly.
You know, so because, you know, just it does, because it can feel like you know, just an attack on you. You know, just it's always a second reviewer syndrome. First always loves it, you know, second reviewers just like, you know, no, I hate this, you know. So it's sort of, no. But I mean, I suppose and you're protecting your, I suppose, your livelihood as well, you know, because you don't want to be sort of just there, just we don't talk about that guy anymore because his ideas are just rubbish now, you know. But and I suppose just thinking about, you know, just critiquing different viewpoints and agendas, you know. I mean, these are popular programmes, they're designed to sell books and things as well, so there's always an element of that as well. We all have agendas of one sort or another, you know, sort of, you know, kind of, so just suppose it's just remaining aware of, you know, where people are coming from and you know, just I
never ever got the view of like academics or gatekeeping stuff, because it's like they're publishing papers, like they're putting it out, they're like, read this if you want, do you know what I mean? It's like you could read that stuff, or you could read about the Graham Hancock, like Younger Dryas stuff and all that might not have happened, but that could have happened and that could have made that happen and that. Whereas you get like academic works going back 150 years of people being like, this is what we think.
This is what we found. Yeah. I suppose as well, if Graham Hancock comes out and agrees with everything you say, he's not going to sell any books because the books have already been wrote. You know, he's got to come out and sort of go against it and I think this is where they might be wrong and I think this might be older than they're saying. And so, but I just want to move on to the Great Pyramid now. So obviously the facts surrounding the pyramid are quite mind-boggling. The sort of almost perfect alignment with north, south, east and west, and alignment with the stars as well, I believe. And so, and just like the sheer weight of it, the size of it. So what do you think is the most fascinating thing about it? I'm taking it you've been visited them. So when you got there, what is it? The sheer size that just sort of blows you away?
Yeah, that was actually the first thing. Like I was saying earlier, but just sort of the writing things, but at the same time you really don't until you actually see it physically. Just. It was a sort of for me it was almost like a kind of existential crisis moment. Just my head couldn't comprehend just this. It was just I really did lose my brain for a minute. Just but yeah, just I think just anybody who's interested in this stuff has got to go and actually see it. I feel that even for I've been studying this all my life, as I said, but until the first time I actually got there, I would say that's the first time I truly got it, sort of thing. So the absolute size of it. And I went inside the Great Pyramid, and that was quite an experience as well. Just sort of becoming aware of just the physical environment that these people are making these things in. So just you're going up into through the Grand Gallery up to the burial chamber. And you don't realise how hot it is and airless and things, and just and there's all this sort of weight above you, and it's just so from the outside you think, oh yes, well this is amazing, it's look, it's perfect, but I think the inside's even more mind blowing. And then when you go up to the burial chamber and you just run your hand down the walls, and they're practically seamless. You can see the blocks there, but you're just like
wow.
So I'm just sitting in the corner, just sort of wow.
Can I get a plasterer back close?
Wow. So it's just their absolute ability. It's mind blowing. It really is. Mm-hmm. So if you ever get there, then you must go up there.
How many times have you been over?
I've been 3. I'm hopefully going again soon. But I usually just go as a tourist so I can enjoy it. So so. Yeah.
Have you ever been for like research purposes, or?
Well, I kind of do a wee bit of that as I'm going, kind of thing. Sort of informally, gathering photos, information, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not involved in any actual projects over there.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying there's a sort of no hostility, but obviously the people of Egypt and the museums in Egypt, they want to keep these artefacts in Egypt. Is there a bit of conflict between maybe people that go in and maybe want to keep these artefacts in other places?
Yeah, that's something which is, that's an ongoing, debate as well. Things like the Rosetta Stone, there's been a kind of long campaign to return that, etc. I think in recent years there's been more attention paid to Egyptian archaeologists. It's kind of they've always been there, but they haven't always been given the recognition that they deserve, or the just the powers to really control what they do with their own heritage. People sort of like Western expeditions which work over there, they work well with them. So on the whole, I think there's sort of fieldwork today, I think, is quite positive. I think the sticking point is still the museums, the collections which have come in the past, because a lot of these objects have become symbolic, things like the Nefertiti bust or the Rosetta Stone, because they've kind of become almost a bit more than what they are in they're greater than the sum of their parts, sort of thing. So the Rosetta Stone, it's in the British Museum, obviously. It's their star artefact, and they don't want to give
British Museum.
Their position is it's a world museum. It's a world archaeology, sort of collection. So if everything goes back, then people wouldn't see this stuff, But on the back of this kind of post-colonial discussion, etc., decolonising collections, I think the view from Egypt and many Egyptian archaeologists is that this is a symbol of something that was taken from without it shouldn't really have been just. There's an argument that to be made for it's being it's part of British and French history as well, which of course it is, but it's a symbol of Egypt, and it's a sort of the Grand Egyptian Museum is open. It's got just about everything from every, period, from their collection, all representative. And it's kind of always like there's a kind of glaring spot, Yeah, it's kind of, it's not quite the elephant in the room because we talk about it a lot, but yeah, it's a kind of,
so it's sad, isn't it?
So it's tricky. So
did they return is it the Greek marbles or something?
There's been progress made on that. That's a similar sort of thing, slightly different, in how they were acquired, but the issue as well is that there is a government act which prevents the British Museum from returning these anything, so so they legally can't. So it's a bit kind of hands are tied in various aspects. But the marbles, there's been a sort of conversation about maybe loaning them back or something, which would perhaps go some way towards, fixing the issue, but it doesn't solve it entirely because obviously the Greek government just want them back because, none of these cases are straightforward because there are, their circumstances of acquirement are all different and, thinking about, who was in charge at the time, so if it was the Ottomans, did they have the right to actually give these? But then there's that, well, they were in charge at the time. How far do you take these things back? So, and it's such a momentous decision, it's kind of, once it's done, you can't undo it. So if they send it back, that's it, So yeah, there's a sort of, conversations about, goodwill and relationships and things. And honestly, I don't know how this is going to pan out. I mean, you could get a replica of the Rosetta Stone, for example, for the new museum, but people know it's a replica.
Yeah, it's not the same feeling.
Yeah.
It's such a mad thing to do, to be like, see that like Rosetta Stone, like that symbol of this empire and that. It's like, we're stealing it and we're just going to put it right there. You can come and see it if you want. Like, we're inviting you to come and see it, but no hiding it. No going in a bank.
Remember the thing you said to me last night about the passport? Can I ask about that? I know it's maybe a lie, but I wanted to ask about the situation.
So you mentioned them earlier on. It's Pharaoh Ramesses.
Ramesses. Is this the Ramesses II passport?
His passport.
He did have a passport. I think there's an image doing the rounds on the internet. I don't think that's actually it.
Right.
But it's a sort of, this is what it might look like if you were to give him a passport. But yeah, he did.
Was that to go from to France or something?
Yes. Yeah. So it's just as a former head of state, he had to have the proper paperwork. There he is.
Looking good.
Looking good for 3,000 years.
He looks young.
He looks like my grandpa.
Doesn't he look a day over 2,500 years old?
Am I right in saying when he got off in France, he was like received as a head of state, like as if he was almost alive?
That's class. The red carpet and everything.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Imagine being that influential, that important to the world that 3,000 years later in your coffin you're getting red carpet treatment. That is mad, isn't
Absolutely.
It?
Why was he going to France?
Do you know, I can't remember off the top of my head. Conservation, possibly. Something like that. No, forgive me, I can't remember that one, actual reason.
So he was a great
warrior. I feel like
warrior.
It was something like that, yeah. Did you see the golden parade of the sarcophagi from the old museum to the new one a few years back? Oh, that's on YouTube as well. The golden mummy parade, basically it was really shiny and blingy and they would have loved it, I think. But all the royal mummies were moved from the old museum, they were all given individual, kind of hearses in a sense, sort of like, with wings on them and their names and everything. And, it was a whole event, just with, with Egyptian singers and, the president was there and it was televised. They just drove them all through the streets, all lit up, to their new home at the new museum.
It's very on brand, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. I think a lot of folks, it's a bit ostentatious, but I think they would have loved it.
They seem like they would have loved it. Could we get a video of it?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's on YouTube,
yeah.
What did you?
The Golden Mummy Parade.
You wouldn't have heard that, right?
The Golden Mummy Parade.
What's that? Oh, look at that.
Whoa. So they're like, what are they, like golden?
Yeah, they're painted in gold and they've got their names on the sides, cartouches, and I can't remember off how many there are, but they say there's about 20 of them or something.
They would have been all over this.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
Look at that,
there you
man.
go.
The pharaoh-mobile.
Just wee shots inside. Yeah, just so it was.
Sorry.
Yeah, just to say, I mean, I suppose that was the thing. They just, live forever. They want to be remembered. People know their names.
Yeah.
People say their names every day. I think this would have been great for them.
Definitely. They done it right. They done all this stuff right. Like, see if you're going to be a king, you want to be treated like this for thousands of years.
You want to be low key as a king.
No.
You need to be
some like King David or something a couple of years ago. Never mind all that. Look
Yeah,
at
that's
that,
cool.
man.
Yeah, so they've been kind of, conserved and everything as well. The bodies have been, stabilised and things, and they're all resting now in a new sort of purpose-built, kind of almost like it's almost like a tomb, just sort of you go down the stairs and it's all dark and they're all just sort of, they're all in their cases and, in their chronological order. So they're kind of, they're all there together, which is nice.
Is it, was it for that reason so that they're all together, or was it to like improve the preservation of them?
A bit of both. The new museum is obviously the place for them to be, but most of these mummies were actually part of a burial cache, so they were discovered together as well. So that's another reason to kind of, it's another part of the story as well. From the Valley of the Kings, this is the reason that Thutmose II's not in his actual tomb, by the way. But in the 21st dynasty, so we're talking maybe about 1000 BC, a lot of the royal mummies were moved by Egyptian officials to a secret hiding place. The tombs were being flooded and they were at risk of tomb robbers and things like that. So the likes of Amenhotep III, Ramesses II, Seti I, Thutmose, all of those ones, they're all moved to in the Theban cliffs up quite near Hatshepsut's temple. It's quite inaccessible, but it was basically it's a tomb, and they were all sealed up in there. They were all tagged and everything with their names and everything, which was very convenient later on. But yeah, it was to keep them safe. And then they were uncovered in the late 19th century. So that's the Daryl Bakri cache.
Think about the amount of maybe no love, but like just adoration for these people of like, right, start the flood and now we need to get these guys out of here. Just these specific people, like that's how much they matter.
It's crazy. So Claire, I'm going to assume you don't think aliens built the pyramids.
I do not know.
So, to the best of your knowledge, obviously there's so many theories. I think somebody asked AI recently what's the most likely theory, and they said giants helped them build it. Going to assume that didn't happen either.
Yeah, I don't really buy into that one either. No.
So what's the most modern understanding of how these were actually built? Because obviously to our brains these days we're going, if they didn't have big machines, and how did they manage this? So how do we think they done it?
Well, it goes back to our sort of just excellent organisation. They had draft teams, and they knew what they were doing. But I think for the most part, the kind of most believable and most likely scenario is the kind of ramp scenario. So basically pulling the blocks up ramps. I mean, they're huge, the blocks, but but given the right traction and people who are organised know what they're doing, it can be done quite quickly, or relatively quickly. And the likes of the burial chamber, things like that, were probably kind of built from the inside out as well. So there's probably kind of two kind of shifts going on, if you like, sort of like building the outside as the inside was being built as well. So.
Just on that, just building from outside in, would they have had architects? Like, would you have had would you have had drawings? Have you ever found? Has that ever been found?
There are sketches and things, but this is part of the reason why we're not entirely, because we don't have, unfortunately, that one papyrus. It's sort of like pyramid building guidebook, sort of thing, sort of IKEA manual or something, because we don't have that, that's what's given rise to a lot of the speculation, like how on earth would you do this? But there's various tomb reliefs as well, which show the building of things like temples and pyramids and things. And the first sort of proper pyramid, the step pyramid, that was designed by King Djoser's chief architect Imhotep, who I'm sure you've heard of. So not the one from the Mummy, but the real life one.
Yeah.
So sort of he's one of the remaining tombs who are still hunting for. He's probably around about Saqqara somewhere. But yeah, absolutely. They would have a kind of factory line, so even just things like tombs themselves, you would have your original, the carvers, and then you would have the draftsman who would mark off, sort of, grids. You can still see the grids, shown through in some places, or maybe unfinished tombs where, they haven't started painting it. You would have plasterers, you would have people who are good at, different things. So you'd have people who are maybe good at doing figures, so they would maybe sort of draw them in and then somebody else would colour them. So it's like full teams of people working on all of these things. So yeah, just total, organisation, focus, yeah.
Collaboration.
It gets you whatever you want, really. So
I think that's maybe why we can't comprehend it, because I feel like, see the way you were telling us about how they believed the pharaoh was divine and almost like otherworldly, like he wasn't just like a mortal being. I feel like people in positions of power these days, we go, right, they're powerful, but they're still just a human being. So it's easier to run a sort of top-down society when you believe the person at the top of it is like exceptional and of something other than what we are.
Yeah, so like, why would you get up in the morning and go and do that?
Exactly.
So, but I suppose, even aside from the, sort of divinity thing, just this is all working towards a common goal, which is, the preservation and, the eternal life of Egypt itself, really. Just this is in the interests of the long-term future of Egypt. So yeah, I suppose that's maybe something these days maybe find a bit harder to, sort of, maybe we want short-term results kind of thing, just it's about looking to the future as well. So
you were saying something about like that far-sighted, being a far-sighted person, like thinking about just your legacy in the future and that job done.
There was a picture when I put up the wedding Egyptologist coming on. Anybody want to ask a question? It was like I posted a picture and it was like the Egyptians thousands of years ago, and it was like, we must build these pyramids so people remember us thousands of years from now. And then the next picture, there was like two guys sitting on a couch looking at a picture of the pyramids going, it was definitely aliens. It does sum it up. Like we almost can't fathom the greatness of like what they've been able to do, but like they couldn't have done that. What do we understand about maybe the length of time? Because I know the Great Pyramid wasn't the first pyramid, wasn't it?
No. The first pyramid was the step pyramid. So it was basically an older type of tomb, which is called a mastaba, which is more like kind of, I think of it like just a big giant, kind of flat roofed tomb, just sort of made of mud brick and, stone and things like that. And the step pyramid was basically a whole bunch of these, on top of each other. And then over the next sort of, couple of centuries, various experiments, I suppose, made with it. So you get your bent pyramid, and you've got, things like that, different, sun temples, sort of thing, just trying to kind of, I suppose, finalise the look, I guess. But I suppose the Great Pyramid is the first sort of fully finished, sort of final form one of that kind of thing. So,
you can like, it's so mad that people have been like, as you say, just go, it must be aliens, because you can see like, right, we'll try it this way, and it's honing this craft into being something that makes something that's jaw-dropping. I was going to ask about the Great Pyramid as well. I don't know if we're going to move off of this. I don't know, but what happened to the top of it?
It's been removed long time ago in antiquity. Yeah, I mean, it was very valuable. I mean, when the pyramids were first finished, they were sort of faced with white limestone, so they would have been like the sun would have been shining, they would have been dazzling.
Gleaming,
you would have seen them from miles away, just, as if they're not already impressive. But yeah, this is kind of, just this is the kind of inner core that we're really looking at today. But yeah, the facing, the limestone's been taken away, just over the centuries for, building and things like that as well. And the capstone, which would have been electrum, which is an alloy of gold and silver. So yeah, that's not going to stay there for very long.
I didn't realise that. It was an actual metal. It was a gold and silver alloy. That is absolutely amazing.
So electrum in ancient Egypt was more valuable than gold and silver individually. So
right.
So yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's like maybe originally what it maybe would have looked like.
Mm-hmm. And it would have reflected in the river as well, and it would have been absolutely spectacular.
Wow.
Was it the Nile that goes, is it? Aye, sorry, that's terrible geography for me. Right, wait.
It's a Clyde.
Aye, surely that's the Kittic. It's Kilbride River. That is a...
But the river itself, that's partly why they've been able to build so much, because moving things by water is much easier than over land.
Yeah.
So certain parts of the pyramid complexes, the valley temples they've made with granite from Aswan, which is hundreds of miles south. So it's been sent up to sort of possibly represent the lower parts of the country as well. So you've got, local limestone, you've got stone from the further parts of the country. So that's a wee kind of symbolic thing in itself as well. So I think that's one of the sort of things that I find just so fascinating, just nothing's ever just as it is. There's symbolism and meaning in everything, so...
As if it wasn't impressive enough to just build it. They've like intertwined a story in it.
And especially since a lot of these things were never meant to be seen, your average everyday person wouldn't, they wouldn't get into the temples and everything. So this is for like the king, the gods, whatever, So just this stuff's just being built or carved and to be sort of, ideally shut away for forever, sort of thing. So,
it's mad that, innit? Yeah. Like we would you would expect just intuitively, you would think that this would have been like a main like plaza. This would have been like a place that everybody would have been there. It's the place to be and all that. But you're saying no, it was kind of
it was kind of. It was sort of. I'll clarify that a wee bit. It's. They were busy places because they were still sort of focuses for the community over time. Festivals and things, the king's sort of mortuary cult, his offerings and everything, that would still keep taking place, but only certain people, got into the, the inner sanctum, as it were. So you can't just, roll in off the fields kind of thing, So things like, the big temples at Karnak and Luxor, just... In antiquity, they would have been roofed and they would have been dark as well. There would have been doors and everything. So we're used to just wandering through them and seeing how light they are. Just most people would never get in there. So yeah, it's a different experience altogether. So
when you visited the pyramids and you were inside them, I've heard that there's a sort of anomaly with the internal temperature when you go inside them. Like, even though it's in blistering heat, when you go in them, is it cool inside it?
Some of them are quite cold. I say when I mentioned earlier going up the gallery and it was really hot and airless, but there are other places which you think, oh, this is actually a lot colder than you would think it would be. So I don't know if that's maybe just something to do with maybe the thermal properties of the stone or something, or maybe just... maybe, and obviously the more underground things will be cooler as well. But yeah, it's quite disorientating actually, and I wonder if that's maybe part of the point, because they were aware of tomb robbers, and that was one of their, they were trying to stop them from, getting in here. So you maybe have seen sort of like, things like traps, the sand traps and everything, that's not really a thing, but, sort of like laying in kind of false routes, false doors, blocking off places, to try to confuse tomb robbers, things like that. Right. They use things like that. Certain maybe kind of locking mechanisms, or even pits as well, which would maybe maybe catch any flooding and also, you know, any tomb robbers as well, hopefully. Didn't work, obviously, but yeah, just the kind of, yeah, just even when you go in, you think, even just trying to work out in your head, right, okay, well, I know that's up there, that's back there, and you're still kind of, you know, just not entirely sure where it is. It's a kind of, yeah, it's a very sort of surreal experience.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And a big ball falls down and starts rolling down towards the big stone.
I was wondering as well, like, we know about the pyramids, but I was wondering in the most sort of general sense, what do we understand about what was the point of building them? Was it just a legacy thing so that thousands of years later it could be like, look how impressive we were?
Yeah, well, there's a large part of that as well, but essentially they were tombs. You know, just it was for the king's body, you know, to be preserved forever. But also, yeah, just it's about might, status. It's about, you know, just this is a divine being, a building worthy of him, you know, etc. And then the symbolism behind pyramids as well, you know, just when we talk about the stars in the sky and everything, it's not a coincidence that it points towards the skies and everything. So yeah, just it's sort of, yeah, just it's a kind of beacon for the heavens and everything as well. So again, sort of three meanings in there. So yeah,
they like their double meanings
they
and
really
triple
do.
meanings. They're so smart. Is there something? Obviously, we want to know nailed on how they built the pyramids, but is there a piece of information that's quite hot now that like Egyptologists are really interested in getting to the bottom of it?
There's loads of things. I'm trying to think now. I suppose especially in the back of, you know, the tomb thing this week. I can't speak for, you know, linguists and people like that, but yeah, I suppose some earlier texts would be good, you know, from, you know, the sort of early dynastic period. You know, just to kind of, you know, fill in some of the gaps. But yeah, some of the, you know, other missing tombs, you know, just, you know, that would just, you know, if we could slot them in there, then that would just, you know, answer a lot of questions. I suppose you can never predict what kind of state they're going to be in. I mean, if you're lucky, they'll be undisturbed, but chances are, you know, they won't be. But yeah, just so I think, yeah, just sort of, yeah, just we could do with some more texts and a few more tombs. I mean, there's tombs, you know, being uncovered all the time, but and you probably heard about, you know, the search for Cleopatra's and everything. So I think in some ways it would be good to kind of, you know, put these to bed in a sense, you know, like at least find out one way or another, you know, either it exists or it doesn't, you know. So even if the end result is disappointing, you know, just at least then we can draw a line under it and we can understand a bit more because it's gone, kind of thing, in a sense.
Move on to the next thing, because the thing about Egypt is it's like so infinite. It seems infinite. Like what you can find seems infinite. See, compared to, like you were saying, obviously kind of ancient Scotland and even any other kind of ancient, not even civilization, just ancient peoples. It's like you find a spoon, you find a pot and that, but Egypt are like, we've got trumpets and that.
This spoon is actually a symbol for I don't know, man. Do we understand more about the pyramid or the Sphinx?
I would say probably the pyramids. Yeah, you probably heard about this so-called Hall of Records underneath the Sphinx as well. That's not a thing. So,
no.
Well, I heard if you like push a button behind its ear,
scratch behind its ear. Just in terms of modern technology, how has new technology changed our understanding of Egypt?
I suppose just just we're able to do more with less invasive techniques. Just things like different types of radar. Means you don't have to dig the same, or you don't dig until you're more sure. Things like digitization of texts is making them more accessible as well to, just for general purposes, more people working on them. And, things like infrared, which is bringing out things in the papyrus, which, you can't even see with the naked eye. Yeah. You could see maybe where there were erasures and things like that and things like that. So, So yeah, I think just the sort of general access to things like the records as well, excavation reports and things like that. They're not all tucked away in archives anymore, so there's more people able to work with all of this stuff.
Yep,
so yeah,
for sure. Aye. Mate, I actually want to say something because I know we're kind of getting to the end. It's one of the things that you do when you're doing a podcast and you're like, I should have said that earlier. So I just wanted to do it. So one of the things that blows my mind the most about ancient Egypt is just the time scale, just like how long it went on for. And there's there's a famous thing about Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone than the construction of the Great Pyramids of Giza, which blows my mind. So I went and found more. Do you want to know some more things that were just like?
Is that true?
Yes.
Is it true? Right, good.
It's true.
Correct me if I'm wrong. No. The first pyramid was built before woolly mammoths went extinct. There was still a couple of woolly mammoths kicking about at 1650 BC. How mad is that? The Great Pyramid was already over 100 years old when King Tut was born.
Oh, it was well over
1,000.
1,000.
Sorry,
yeah.
1,000. I misread a zero there.
That's right.
That blows my mind as well. That's a wee note on that one is that's the same time gap between the fall of the Western Roman Empire and today, which is mind blowing.
Yeah.
The last hieroglyph inscription was carved in 394 CE, over 4,000 years after the first Egyptian hieroglyphs appeared, which is just mad because it's like these people have been like using this language for more time than is even conceivable for us. That's is that 4,000 years? That is so mind-boggling, man. When the Colosseum in Rome was completed in 80 CE, the Great Pyramid was already older to them than the Colosseum is to us today.
Yep.
That's crazy, man.
There's another few here, but this one I love. The ancient Egypts were brewing beer 1,000 years before Stonehenge was built.
Yep. That's true.
So they've sorted out a booze. And we're starting rocks.
I said that to Jamie because you were asking me, and it's something you can maybe ask Claire about because you're into Scottish history as well, aren't you? So what was the thing you've seen in Orkney?
Scarabray. I love the Scarabray.
That's really cool.
The Hobbit village. It's amazing.
So that aligns with...
Yeah, pretty much.
We were talking about it last night and I was like, that's mad how you can just, that's just a visual representation of this is what the Egyptians were up to, this is what the Orkney boys were up to, and it's like it's just they're miles apart, but like
they're just throwing stones at each other
like that's amazing. And it's amazing that how old is this roughly, Claire?
Just it goes back like Neolithic period. So yeah.
So that is obviously amazing that that settlement, and it's mad that that's still preserved in a place like the Orkneys as well, which is quite windy and
so it was just uncovered when a sandstorm, kind of pulled all the sand away from it.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, so I suppose it's kind of preserved a bit.
Excavating there, are they?
Yeah, it's not really the kind of just go and see what's up there, but I suppose it's a kind of I love Scarabray and I love all this stuff as well, and I think I always like to sort of just talk about just the kind of in relative terms, I suppose, because at the time, this is like peak culture, for its time, and the Egyptians have got an advantage because just that's their Bronze Age and everything is before ours. So if you think of just the kind of like the cradle of civilization, just if you want to call it that, the Fertile Crescent, Jordan, Egypt, all these kind of things, it's coming out in a wave from there, so it just hasn't reached us yet. So sometimes I think it's a wee bit unfair to compare Stonehenge
to distance is just no geographic.
But I mean, it's even so, the Great Pyramid, it's it's an unsurpassable thing, really. So. But yeah, I think sometimes
you're so clever.
That kind of reminds me of like Glasgow getting a Popeyes, but Orkney probably doesn't have one yet. It's sort of similar.
That is very similar.
What do you know about Göbekli Tepe?
Not a huge amount. No, it's not really my area.
That well predates Egypt, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very old. That's about my limit for that one. I know where it is. I know it's super old. So you'll need to talk to somebody else about that one.
I seen one in Indonesia. It was a guy in Indonesia who was saying it was a pyramid that was meant to be old, or saying it was like something like 12 to 15,000 years old or something. But it's like heavily criticised. I forget what it was called now. But have you ever seen that one? No, it's up a big hill and it's just ruin.
Is this at Göbekli Tepe?
No, it's in Indonesia. Is that?
Indonesia. Göbekli. Yeah.
That's like Turkey, isn't it?
Yeah, modern Turkey.
I can't remember. I seen something about it the other day, and I think it's kind of widely discredited.
I think so. I mean, I think
27,000 years old.
No,
that's it there.
Oh, that one.
So it's
oldest pyramid.
the Gunung Padang, but I don't think it's true.
Yeah, I think because there's other sort of pyramids, inverted commas. I suppose it's the difference between a man-made one and an artificial one. Perhaps these have been a focus for culture because of their shape. So it's not really a pyramid as in the same kind of way, so it's kind of that they're not really comparable kind of thing. It could still be an important site at 2,700 years ago or whatever, but it's not that.
You sometimes see things about like Antarctica having pyramids, and it's just a mountain.
I know, it's just a hill. What are you talking about?
Yeah, there's some in Bosnia as well, which is part of their kind of tourist trade. There's a sell wee pyramid ornaments and things, and it's trying to sort of I suppose drum up tourist interest about these so-called pyramids, but they're man-made structures. They've been, proven to be, that they're they're not man-made, and it's been proven to be that. But the I'm not going to try and say the guy's name because I don't speak Bosnian and I don't want to butcher it. But just things like that. I suppose it's a sort of it's still keeping eyes on that sort of thing, so I think that's another thing about, the kind of fringy things, nobody would maybe have heard of these Bosnian pyramids if he wasn't talking about them. So, which in turn makes people look more into the rest of it, so the real stuff. So,
is it true that the Egyptians, after the Great Pyramid, got worse at building pyramids?
No, I think it was, the Great Pyramid sort of, it's the benchmark against which all monuments are measured, really. I think that's a wee bit of sort of misunderstanding over the point of them. The Giza Plateau is a really stable, it's a really stable plateau. It's a great building site. There's loads of fantastic stone nearby and everything. So other pyramids were being built with, just the foundations weren't as solid, so they just haven't lasted as well. But also that kind of move away from that sort of giant pyramid building thing. It's not that there weren't any, or that they were losing the skills or whatever. It's just that they were turning their attentions elsewhere.
Right.
So if you think about, say, the Temple of Karnak, for example, that's the biggest religious structure in the world. So in terms of, just time, I suppose, monumentality, manpower, etc., it's kind of equivalent, to the Great Pyramid. That's like the New Kingdom's pyramid, and because the kings were buried in those as tombs before, they're being buried elsewhere. So it's just their focus has moved away. So it's not that they lost the skills; they're just doing other things with them.
Right. So no, that's fair enough. If you don't mind, I've got some questions from the people on Patreon. Now, I think a lot of people misunderstood what an Egyptologist was, and they've just asked about like Mo Salah that plays for Liverpool. He's an Egyptian guy.
That's the limit of. I'm not gonna. Yeah.
so I'm going to skip the question.
I can confirm he's Egyptian. That's all I can say.
The Egyptian king, people call him. He's nae tootin'.
Ashley asks, were the pyramid and the Sphinx painted in all mad colours? What did they do with the brains when they were mummifying folk? What is the maddest ritual they performed? That's like 3 different questions. Okay. So were they painted?
Let's say that you saw the limestone on the pyramids, so that's the answer to that one. Yeah, they were white basically. The pyramids are very I suppose there's not really an awful lot of pigment inside them either, actually, but there is some. There's some nice blue colours surviving inside as well. Thinking particularly of the Unas pyramid, with the pyramid texts. The Sphinx, you can't see it very well in pictures, actually. I think that's another reason why you have to actually go and see, because you can see it better in person. It does have colour on it. There's red and blue on it. It would have had a striped headdress like the king. So there's that one. So all temples, obviously, they would have all been like super brightly coloured. And what was the third one? Brains, wasn't it?
What did they do with the brains when they were mummifying folk?
Just pretty much discarded them. Because the heart was where they believed that's where your thoughts and emotions and all of these kinds of things were,
so
seated.
You had to keep that.
So this is where the weighing of the heart thing comes from, in the Hall of Judgment with Anubis and the scales and all that kind of thing. So they had great medical knowledge, but just some of it wasn't. Just their reasoning for some things weren't quite right. So the heart was important, and of course it is, but just they just hadn't quite grasped the function of the brain, I suppose. So there are some mummies which have come a few kind of brains and left inside, kind of just a wee bit desiccated, lying in the back there. But for the most part, they were just dumped.
What did they think the brain was?
Well, they knew it was in their head. Sort of. They would break open. This is the nice juicy bit. Break open, your nasal bones here to get up to it, and do that kind of, hook them out and basically scramble them and let
Scrambled
them
egg.
scrambled eggs, just let it drain out. So so again, and apart from the heart, the other organs would be taken out and dehydrated, wrapped, and all that kind of thing as well. So that's where your canopic jars come from, the wee jars with the heads and everything. So,
right.
So brains were basically discarded.
See, just going back to the Sphinx, I know we didn't touch too much on that. Is it true that predates the pyramids? No,
it's scholarship generally accepts that it's Khafre, the king. So that's Great Pyramid. The three main pyramid dates. It's contemporary with those.
And it has the body of a lion and the head of a human.
Yeah.
So was that just them sort of symbolising again?
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of, going back to what we were saying earlier about the, animals and kings and things, folk, and, the lion, that's one of the other, early symbols of the king as well. From the same place, Hierakonpolis that the Narmer palette came from, there's a wee, just wee pottery lion has come out of there as well. These are, sort of religious deposits, connected with the king and everything. So the image of the king, either associated with lion or just that kind of just motif and everything. It's a kind of, again, it's this sort of the symbolism, something like the kind of the power of the lion combined with the humanity of the king, that kind of thing, divinity, etc., etc. So it's a kind of hybrid, sort of meaning, but that's what that's doing there.
This next one, I'm going to admit it's a bit inappropriate, right? But I'm kind of worried in case it's true, so I need to read it. But if you want us to take it out, I'm happy to take it out. So Stella says, my pal told me the other day that Cleopatra used to put loads of bees in a bag and use it as a vibrator, and that apparently Bees in the Trap by Nicki Minaj is named after this. Can you confirm or deny?
I think
Cleo, what's she up to?
I think I can neither confirm nor deny
That's
that.
it could be there.
It could be. That's a new one. I
You
know.
need to research it.
I need to come back to this.
I don't know if I want that in my search history though. Yeah, I thought this was going to be the ass's milk bath or something, but it's so much worse. No.
What's that?
Oh, the bathing in donkeys, ass's milk. Keeps your skin nice.
Really?
Yeah, I
It's
can
true.
see
It works.
I can
Put a wee
see
bit of powdered milk in your bath.
Really?
Your
Keeps
skin
you-
will be lovely. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, oof.
Give it a go.
Did they know how to powder milk, or were they just getting it out of the raw stuff?
They were raw.
Yeah.
They were smart, but they hadn't powdered it. That fantastic question about Cleopatra being closer to the iPhone.
Aye.
Doing quite the finale, that one.
Would you call an Egyptian taxi driver?
Oh no.
Why did we let them ask questions?
I don't know.
Okay, go.
What do you call an Egyptian taxi driver?
Tutankhamun.
Oh,
I have to say, I haven't heard that one.
You've told
All
me
sorts
that.
of variations of Tutankhamun, but I haven't heard that
Aye.
one. So, yeah. So that's a new one.
I thought this was another one taking the piss, but actually isn't. Because I googled it. Can you talk about the traces of cocaine being found in mummies? Any idea how they got it?
Oh, that's a difficult one, actually, because it's things like, all of these kind of like scientific ones, DNA, all these sorts of things. They're difficult to try to think. There's probably a sciencey word for it, but just contamination and things like that. So it's hard to really
quantify.
quantify. Well done. Yes. So it's hard to really say for sure that is where that's come from or whatever. So.
Aye.
And I'm not a sciencey person, so I can't really shed any more light on that one. So it's a bit
Just like the bees question.
I'll leave the bees for someday else.
What would an ancient Egyptian sesh have looked like, aka a party? So how would they?
Yeah, I suppose just like we were saying, lots of beer. Yeah, wine, drinking, dancing, music. Yeah.
But the beer was like oatmeal or something.
It's quite it's like kind of barley and stuff. It's kind of like, the mash is it's thick, I mean, there's different qualities obviously as well. So,
You're not going to
just
get like a
wine
German
as well.
Pilsner.
No Jaeger bombs or anything like that.
It'd still be
no.
a good night, but
No doubt.
Yeah, totally would. And I suppose just what you're saying about, just the lotus and things like that. I mean, again, that's another kind of sciencey thing, I guess. But yeah, just they would have all sorts of, kind of things. I mean, they would have opium and things like that, poppy seeds and things. So it's entirely possible. Just
It was a good time.
aye, opium.
having a good time. Yeah.
Rory McLeod asks, what was the Egyptians' obsession with animals and made them have animal head statues for everything?
Well, again, that's a kind of it's a symbolic thing. Just basically, if you don't know the answer, it's sort of like just say, oh, it's symbolic. It's like our equivalent of, oh, it's a ritual object. But yeah, it's art again. It's symbolized. It's a symbol of something. So it's what those animals symbolize. So likes of Anubis, the jackal-headed god of the dead. Jackals are, they live out in the desert, they roam round cemeteries, they're black, they're kind of, they're quite goth, so he's associated with the dead. So it's all that's basically what those are about. So
do you think it's quite funny how like they would have obviously used like they say the jackal and stuff to symbolise the spirit of that thing or what that just kind of conjures up in your mind, but now they things are so synonymous with Egypt and ancient Egypt that it's like this symbolises Egypt now. It's funny how like symbolism can change like that, innit?
It is, yeah. I suppose, yeah, and the Eye of Horus and all of these kind of things.
Was that luck or something? What was that?
Yeah, it was sort of like wholeness, protection, that kind of thing. So yeah, but yeah, it's sort of Vulcan's eye. So back to that
scary
thing again. So
it scares me, the jackal.
Archie Boy asks, I'm going to Egypt in the summer. Is there anything that I should/shouldn't do? I want to hear it from an expert.
Don't climb on the monuments. Don't put anything in your bag, even if it's just a wee bit of pot or something. You think, oh, that's a cool wee souvenir. Don't do it. So yeah. I suppose it means I presume he's meaning in terms of just etiquette and general behaviour. Yeah, just don't be an arse. So just behave yourself.
I was in Rome, and what's the structure in Rome? It's got the hole. Is it the Pantheon? That's got the hole at the top of it. And there was a guy writing his name, him and his girlfriend's name in the wall, and he got chucked out. And he was like, "What?" And I'm like,
I know,
"You can't do that."
Oh,
I know, it's just an old thing, Yeah.
And they're no here now, man. Who's going to say it?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think actually. Just tell them this, don't drink super cold water.
Right.
You will regret it.
Oh,
really? Why?
Is it the ice?
Yeah,
Oh, the ice.
just generally, just cold water. Generally, let it come up a bit. I know it's not the most exciting tip, but his holiday will be a lot better if he does this.
Fair enough.
Because it's really hot, and then you're throwing cold water down you, and probably drinking an awful lot of it because you get really thirsty. And then if you suddenly drink lots of cold water, it's not going to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
sure
a
you
good
know where
tip.
it's going. So yeah, because you don't want to spend the rest of your holiday in your hotel room.
Well.
So yeah.
Logan Downey asks, when did the mummification process stop in Egypt?
Well, they were still doing it into Roman times. So that when the Romans were in Egypt, they were still, they were doing their own thing, but they're kind of adapting customs. So you maybe see things like the Greco-Roman Fayum portraits, so we've got mummies with lovely wrappings and those kind of portrait panels, which are more like, more Roman Greek in style. So they were still doing it then. But then Egypt became a Christian country, really, that's when the, Coptic Christianity was round about then as well, and that's, they don't do mummification and things. So yeah, right down to like 1st, 2nd century.
Oh, well, I guess that sort of leads in well to the last question we've got here. Matthew Sinclair asks, what caused the downfall of Egypt?
I would say not any one particular reason, but I think it's just back to the sort of the length of their history. It's easy to, well, relatively easy maybe to, pull an empire together, but to hold on to it for so long is, that's highly unusual. I think apart from China, I think, it's the longest lived one. So I think it's maybe one of those, it's inevitable that it was going to. And I think just with the people round about them getting more powerful, they had that bit of kind of head start. But then by the time the Persians, Romans, Greeks were coming in, I think it was too much,
It's a tough
kind of
time,
thing.
So, a tough time that with the armies kicking about in it, like try to hold on to all your the tip of your pyramids.
Yeah,
Get strapped in by the
Trojans are there. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, even in the New Kingdom, they're having to, like Sir Ramesses II, Seti I, all the kind of great military pharaohs, they're having to, fight off invaders all the time. So it's like people have been chipping away at it for a long time.
Just natural that amount of time.
So yeah, yeah. So just in obviously Rome at the time was, super powerful. So it was just, it was just their time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Just a personal question for you. What's an artifact that you've personally came across that is just absolutely blowing your mind?
Oh, so many. I'm trying to think the last time I went, whoa, check that. Actually, I think the last time I came across something I went, whoa, that's awesome, was actually from the Greco-Roman period. There's a big statue of something called the Apis bull, which is a sort of deified animal. It's not the animal itself, but it's the kind of it's the residual sort of resting place of the god Ptah, his sort of soul spirit sort of thing. Yeah, that's
Wow.
one of them.
Oh my God.
It's just it's not that one specific. It looks very like that. I think it's in the Greco-Roman Museum in Alexandria now. I saw it when it was in London. Actually, it was on loan to the British Museum as part of an exhibition. And it was just the size of it, and it was just so majestic.
You're just blown away by it.
It was just like, I just thought that's a nice. It was so polished and everything. It was wonderful. Yeah, that's it there. I think that one. I think that's that one. I think, I don't know, there was just something about, just the pose, it was just, yeah.
Imposing kind of.
Yeah, it was imposing. It's just wonderfully sculpted. And I think as well because, Greco-Roman Egypt's not really my area, so I think I'm maybe a bit more easily sort of impressed by it, because it's sort of, I don't mean the stuff before it, sort of like, I've seen all that, but just these things I suppose are a bit less familiar to me. So yeah, I think probably that one.
See, what's amazing about that as well, like whenever you see drawings, I'm not like, see when I talk about like back in the day. I would call this back in the day. I'd call like ancient Egypt
qualifies,
back in the day, right? So like back in the day, when you seen art and you seen like them drawing like a horse or a bull or something, it was, the proportions were way off. See, when you see like Catholicism, like when you see some of their drawings of like depictions of like alligators and that, and you're like, what did they actually, how did they not get it right? And they've got that bull spot on, actual spot on all the way back then.
I don't know if they'd one sort of modelling for it, Bill over in the corner, just sort of standing there, just like some. Yeah, it's like the medieval art with the weird cats and things. Snails,
big long neck and that.
It's one of my favourite genres, medieval animals.
It's good. It's good fun.
So I mean, I'll probably go away later and think, I don't know why I didn't say that big, because I mean, honestly, I know it sounds a bit sort of like, I don't know, but just every day, there's something about Egypt that amazes me still. So I think that's why I'm still studying. I'm at this point in my life. Sort of. I'm not saying how many years I've been studying it, but but yeah, just it still amazes me. So, but yeah, I think that's the last time that I can just immediately sprung to mind. But yeah.
So we found you through Egyptology Scotland.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a wee bit about what Egyptology Scotland is?
Yeah, well, it's a local society, and we are basically just a bunch of just Egypt fans, really. So, but it's based around sort of study and interest in ancient Egypt. So we hold lectures in Glasgow and Edinburgh, mostly Glasgow, and a lot of them are online as well. So you can tune in from wherever you are in the world. We have them roughly about once a month, and we get just lots of people. We get famous Egyptologists on. We get postgrad students, sort of independent scholars. Just all sorts of subjects and everything. So yeah, so you should. You don't have to be a member to come along, but we would like people to join, obviously. But non-members are welcome as well. So yeah, you can look us up, and if you fancy any of our topics, then you can join us. You can just tune in online, see if you like it. So
we'll be there.
Brilliant, Claire.
Yeah, excellent.
That was one of my favourite podcasts I've ever done, honestly. It was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. This was fun. I don't need any excuse to come and talk about Egypt. So,
we'd love you to come back. We'd love you to come
Absolutely.
back and talk
follow up questions. Yes.
Yeah.
Can maybe come back with the Cleopatra answer? I'm trying to think who I can ask about that.
You just come back and like, no.
There's your next thing for like Egyptology Scotland. You should get on the stage and say, look, guys, we've had a breaking discovery. This changes everything about Egypt.
Oh God, can you imagine? Just name linked forever with that. Oh my goodness.
I'd love to talk about some more of ancient Scotland as well. That really interests me.
We could maybe do that again.
Definitely.
But I really wanted to focus on ancient Egypt, just because it's something that we've been so interested in, and we'll put all the links to Egyptology Scotland stuff in the description of this video, so if you're interested you can go check it out. But Claire, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for talking to me.
See you later, guys. Cheers.
Cheery, bye.
Bye.
Patreon.com/Reilly's Gaff. Patreon.com/Reilly's Gaff. Patreon.com/Reilly's Gaff. Patreon.com/Reilly's Gaff.